like to use canola oil. Peanut oil is by far and away the best cooking oil, but given the amount of allergies that exist, it's just so much safer to cook with canola oil. So that's what we use at home these days. And to crisp up the whole hog, which
pork, right? Full pork or whole hog that we're doing today?
Or you said whole hog.
I know.
My assistant's already
I'm
messing
screwing
me
it
up. There's some fat already in there, so I kind of add a little bit of oil, and then, but we'll run through all of that. Yeah, we'll run through that when we get to it, because you're gonna saute some onions and stuff first, anyways. So 6:04. We'll go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is turn our oven on and get our water boiling. I would like to introduce my assistant. Everybody should have an assistant in the kitchen. This is Patrick Feges. I'm Erin Smith, in case we forgot to introduce ourselves. We own Feges BBQ, and we're really excited to be cooking with you guys this evening. We've got a 3-course meal planned. This is super casual. If you are not planning to eat the food this evening, then that is why the recipes have been included. You can just hold on to the meal kit and cook it at your leisure. The other thing is you should be having fun always, so don't be nervous. We're probably even gonna make mistakes, and we're professionals, so no judgments all around. But first up, turn your oven on. We actually already did this because our oven is really finicky, and we wanted to make sure that it did in fact turn on. And then you're gonna wanna get a pot of water boiling. This is not seasoned yet, so don't season your water yet. You're gonna wanna season the water once it comes to a boil. And the reason is, once you add the salt, you raise the boiling temperature. So it's just gonna take longer for it to come to a boil. So I had to add my knob onto the oven because our son is crazy and pulls the knobs and turns the gas on. So we keep all that stuff to the side. So I have it on high. So by the time we get to boiling, needing to cook the pasta, the water will be ready to go, and the oven will be at 350 degrees for the cake. So the very first thing that we're gonna do after we get all of that going is mix our salad. So the salad, and we serve this at our restaurant, this is the kale salad. So you have all the ingredients for this in your kits. The kale is already washed and chopped, so you don't need to do anything to the kale other than just add it to your mixing bowl. This is a slightly small mixing bowl for that amount of kale, but we'll make it work. The reason that we're gonna dress this first is just like we do it at the restaurant. We dress it about an hour before we serve it, 30 minutes at the least, because the marinade, the dressing actually helps to break down the fibrous kale, so it really kind of makes it soft. And I think people are a little scared of kale because it's so fibrous, so by adding the dressing early, it just makes it a more approachable salad. So you're gonna mix in the dried cranberries, which we have here. We also have some already toasted almond slivers. And you can just, these have all been measured out, so you can just go right on in. And if there's any ingredient you don't want to add because you don't like almonds or you don't like cranberries, then by all means just omit them.
How much water in the pot for the pasta? How
much water in the pot? I filled it up. I left about 2 inches of room in the pot so that when I add the pasta, it's not going to just completely displace out.
3 to 4 quarts?
Well, yeah, this is a 5-quart pot. So yeah, let's call it 3 quarts. And then I have the lid on it so that we don't get a lot of evaporation, so that when it is time to add the pasta, I can just go right in.
You definitely need room in the pot for the pasta. So don't fill it to the top with water. You need room to add the pasta.
This is correct. Okay, back to the salad. This is fresh red onions going right in, perfectly thinly shaved by our team at Feges BBQ. And here's the real technical part. I'm gonna have my assistant. I put way too much salad in a really small bowl, so now I'm gonna give it to Patrick. Okay.
I'm gonna grab a bigger bowl.
Is there a variation in kale based on the color? I mean, or should you be looking for something when you buy it, like other vegetables? Or I mean, that looks so green and fresh, and sometimes it ends up being really dark.
It's a different type of kale.
Okay.
So, and we've actually used both types of kale. There's Tuscan kale, there's dinosaur kale, and there's black kale. Sometimes the black kale is called Jacinto kale. They will all work. What we're using today is just a regular Tuscan style of kale because it's what's been available. And quite frankly, these days, we take what we can get.
It's been interesting. The
there are-
amount of shortages this year.
Yeah. There are
Crazy.
definitely some supply chain things going on in the restaurant industry. Okay, so for the champagne vinaigrette, there's 5 ounces of champagne vinaigrette in your container. You may not need it all. We understand some people have different preferences. So go ahead and shake it up to get the oil and the dressing all mixed up. These are the highly technical cooking skills you're gonna learn today. Shake it up. And don't pour it all in. I'm gonna pour about half of it in. I'm gonna let my sous chef mix it up and we'll figure out if we need to go ahead and use it all. So there you go. Go ahead and mix that.
So I'm using tongs. You can use your hands. At the restaurant, we put gloves on and use our hands because we kind of massage the kale. We massage the vinaigrette into the kale. And honestly, it's easier to toss the salad with your hands than tongs. But
We'll go use your hands then.
we don't have any gloves, so I'm going to use tongs. But what we try and do, we really do try and massage the dressing into the.
Chef Aaron, Patrick, what's in the champagne vinaigrette?
Those at home that have gloves.
Right? Restaurant owners always have latex gloves at home. Because that's what we do.
Yeah. But yeah, so we kind of, the kale is fibrous, right? And that's one of the knocks on kale. So we're dressing it early so it breaks down, but also kind of massaging that into it.
We have a question of, do you make the dressing? Is it a certain brand or is there a recipe?
So this is a champagne vinaigrette. It's a really standard recipe of champagne vinaigrette. We can actually send you the recipe. We can send Kateri the recipe so she can get that out to you guys. It's super easy, but if you see now that he's mixed it all, the salad, it looks to me like it's perfectly dressed. I wouldn't add any more. But yeah, so this is a really standard champagne vinaigrette. We can send Kateri the recipe so you guys can have it. We decided to go ahead and just provide it for you because otherwise that was just gonna add a lot of, just one more thing
steps
to the class, yeah. So the salad is ready to go. We'll just set it aside. Like I said, you want this to marinate and break down, so that's why we did it first. But that's ready to enjoy. If you don't want to have it for dinner, save it, have it for lunch, and put some of Feges BBQ smoked chicken on top. Super easy lunch you've got right there. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna jump into the cake. So we're starting with the, we're gonna do dessert first with us because we're gonna bake the cake and we'll have it plated by the end and it'll be warm. You do not have to serve it warm, but it's chocolate cake. So why not? Because it's chocolate cake. So I'm gonna grab my assistant.
And if you don't finish the cake and you eat leftovers tomorrow or the next couple of days, let it come up to room temp. Let it warm up a little bit. It's a lot easier to eat and frankly tastes better.
Okay, so there's so much stuff to unpack here. All the things that have been provided. You've got an egg, some sugar, some buttermilk, some oil that probably leaked into your box like mine did, some cake mix that we made, and a little bit of vanilla extract. And then you're just gonna set aside your room temperature buttercream and your grape compote. You won't need those till the end of the class when we plate this. You were also provided a piece of parchment paper. And in your instructions, it says that you're gonna need some pan spray. If you don't have pan spray, that's fine. You'll just oil your pan. That's essentially what pan spray is anyways. So, and some tools that not necessary, but a pastry brush. We'll show you some cool plating stuff. And then this is a cake tester. It's just a really fancy way of testing whether the cake is done. So the recipe is enough for 1 sheet pan. If you aren't using a sheet pan, what I'm going to use today is actually this baking dish, just a little bit deeper. I like the cake just a little bit deeper so that, I don't know, it just tastes better for me that way. But at the restaurant, we use the sheet pan.
So if you're doing the sheet pan, you can easily layer it. But since we're doing this, we're not going to layer it, correct?
Yeah, and there's a little backstory about this chocolate cake. It's not, we hired a pastry chef to help us create our desserts at the restaurant. Neither of us are very good bakers. So she was, you know, really good about creating a recipe that was super easy to, for us to replicate. And when I was on Chopped most recently, if I'd made it to the finals, this recipe was going to be my cake choice because I have it memorized and I can do it in 16 minutes. But I didn't make it to the finals, so I never got to show off those skills. Okay, so but I have since forgotten the recipe, so you're gonna have to read the recipe out to me. I can still make it in under 16 minutes. It's right here.
Yeah.
So the first step, which you should already have done, is to get your oven to 350 degrees.
All right. Sift AP flour, baking soda, cocoa powder, and salt together, which I believe we've already done.
So this has been sifted, but it also was sifted and then sat. So I'm gonna sift it. The instructions that you guys received also said you would need a sifter. If you don't have a sifter, I can assure you that the end result of the cake sifted versus not sifted is gonna be undetectable. So yes.
Is a 9-inch by 9-inch glass pan sufficient?
Of course. 9-inch by 9-inch glass pan will work. If you have only like a round pie tin, you can do that. You might need to use 2 instead of 1. It's super flexible. I mean, it's just, if you do something deeper like this, I think the instructions say to bake it for 12 minutes. If you do it deeper, you're probably just gonna need to add, you know, a couple minutes to the cook time. And since we're doing it in a deeper pan, and you're at home, if you do it in a baking sheet, you'll probably notice that yours is done. When your timer goes off, check it and pull it out. Ours might need another couple of minutes. So I'm just gonna sift this into here.
Erin would like to watch, oh, sorry, Robin would like to watch you on Chopped. When will it air?
It already aired. I don't know how you can watch the reruns. I know they come on a lot because people text me.
So there's 2 episodes, one of which she won, which was called The Deadliest Basket.
Yeah, so that's just the salt.
The other one she filmed was the Chopped Champions. So she competed against other previous winners. And what was the name of that episode?
Chopped Champions.
Chopped Champions.
Grand Champions.
Chopped Grand Champions.
I don't recommend watching the second one. Watch the first one.
Another one
Watch
she
the first
won.
one. Okay.
Okay, next.
I'm gonna get this out of the way. Since we're
In
not
the
here.
separate container, mix the buttermilk and water, which we've already done.
No, we haven't
No?
done.
Oh, okay.
All right, getting ahead of yourself. We've given you buttermilk. It's equal parts buttermilk and water. So bakers are gonna cringe right now, but we're gonna eyeball it. So you're gonna add the same amount. You see what I'm doing with my fingers? This is a very precise measurement tool. The same amount, you've got this much buttermilk. So you're gonna add water up to here. Tap water, filtered water, it doesn't really matter, whatever you've got. And we're just gonna put it into this container.
The salt is already in the cake mix. I think you saw that
Yeah.
in the strainer. She went ahead and dumped that back in.
If you're not comfortable just eyeballing it, take a marker, do your buttermilk line, and then do a line for the water, and then fill the water to that.
Or pull out a scale and do 160 grams.
Like I said, we're not bakers. We're in the barbecue game. We're in the barbecue game. If we pull a scale out, it's because we're measuring brisket, okay?
It'll be fine. Just eyeball it.
Okay, that step is complete. What's the next step?
In a mixer with the whisk attachment, combine oil, sugar, and vanilla. Mix until fully incorporated.
Okay, so we're using our fancy machine that we don't use very often.
The egg beaters also work. You can use
Yeah, if you've got a hand mixer.
or a whisk if you want to.
Listen, if you've got an assistant that you don't like very much, they can do this by hand. I like you too much to do that. So you can add all these things at the same time. So I've got the sugar in there. The oil, the reason I wrote oil for cake and not just oil was so that you knew that this was a measured amount of oil for the cake recipe and not meant to be used for cooking. The cooking oil, hopefully you have provided yourself as the instructions stated. Okay, so sugar, oil, vanilla. Okay. And precisely 4 grams of vanilla, which I measured each one of these out for you guys. And just dump that in. Okay, and then we'll go on. Okay, it says fully incorporated. Is that what the instructions say?
Yeah.
Okay. I did learn this from a baker. I'm gonna go, you wanna periodically scrape the bowl down so that your ingredients are in fact getting blended evenly. So we'll go just a little bit longer. All right, that looks incorporated. What's up next?
Add the egg.
Okay. 1 egg, everybody should have gotten 1 egg. I don't know how to crack it fancy like they do on TV shows, do you? That's not, I'm talking like the one hand. Better not get any shell in my dish. Okay. All right. And you mix it until it's just incorporated?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just 1 egg. If you had 2 eggs, the step might be mix 1, then add the other. But when there's only 1, it's super singular and easy. So we're just gonna wait until we're gonna mix it on like medium until the egg is just completely integrated into the sugar and oil. And stop to scrape. I hope I'm making at least 1 pastry chef proud right now. And give it a little bit more time. That looks pretty good. You can start to see the egg dissolving too. What's the next step?
All right, add the sifted dry ingredients and wet ingredients, alternating in 3 increments, ending with wet. Be sure to scrape the bowl in between each addition to ensure even incorporation.
We were already doing that. Okay, so it ends with what?
Yeah, let's start with dry.
Okay, so you've got the buttermilk container that you've added water to is your wet ingredients, and then you've got your sifted bowl. So we're gonna start with our sifted.
You need to lower the mixing bowl down to make it easier. Aaron's a professional.
Just making a little bit of a mess. Okay, so I'll go low here. You don't want all that powder that you just added to be in your face. All right, and while it's going, I'm just gonna add 1/3 of the liquid. And then I'm gonna scrape. Guys, I'm as nervous making this as you are. We really don't do a lot of pastry. And then we train somebody how to do this and we.
So you're scraping the edge of the bowl because the ingredients will get stuck to the edge or on the bottom underneath the whisk, because the whisk isn't necessarily touching the bowl. So this is just making sure everything gets mixed together.
Okay, so I scraped. Now I'm gonna add A little bit more. There we go. Just enough for one more after this. All right. It's looking really good. I don't know if you notice when I'm kind of adjusting the speed as I'm adding things, and that's because I have learned many lessons with a mixer. If you add powder ingredients and then turn it on too high, you get powder in your face. If you already have it on high when you add the liquids, then you get liquids in your face. So just take advantage of my 15 years of experience and watch how I'm doing. Okay, so the last third of the dry ingredients is going in. Start on low. I may not add all of this. It's looking really, we'll show you the consistency. I'm gonna scrape it. So I turned it off, I'm gonna scrape it, and then I'm gonna let it go just a little bit longer, but I'm not gonna add all of that liquid because, and this is just, part of this is just the weather conditions in Houston, but if it's really humid outside or there's more moisture in the air.
Also scaling down the recipe.
Yeah, also we quartered a recipe and put it into small pint containers. But I'm not gonna add all the liquid because I just having done this before, I know that the consistency is right. So I scraped it down. I'm gonna give it a little bit more mix to incorporate what I just scraped down, and then it's ready to go into the pan. That looks really good. So I'm going to show you this. Okay, so you can see it looks a lot like brownie batter. I don't want it to get any thinner than that. I really just want to eat it. I like this.
Some people are.
It's okay if you do. There's only one raw egg in there.
That egg is pasteurized.
Egg is pasteurized, that's true. Okay, so the next kind of cool, I'm just gonna set this aside for a second. The next kind of cool thing we'll show you is some parchment paper technique. Okay, so if you've got your sheet pan, you would spray the sheet pan first with your pan spray and then put the parchment paper on top and then spray it again. We're gonna, assistant, can you take my pan? Because we're using a pan like this, we'll actually go ahead and give it a little crease and then pull it out, and then you can cut it. Apologies, I did not have my mise en place. Cut it where you see the corners. And the reason parchment paper is nice, it's not necessary, but the reason it's nice is because it just allows, it means that it's not going to stick to the pan. If it sticks to anything, it'll stick to the paper. And the paper is just real easy to peel off. I don't need that. Okay. And then, so I'm going to spray the pan. Thank you. And because it's sprayed, you just see it sticks nicely in there. And because I cut those corners, I get a nice edge. There we are. All right, and then I'm gonna spray this. Try not to inhale. And ready to go. So we're gonna put all the contents of this bowl will go into this one pan or the sheet pan if that's what you're using. All right. And if you think you're gonna wanna eat some, just save a little bit. You don't have to scrape the bowl that aggressively if you have kids that are eyeing for it. And then just give it a little shake. You'll see the air bubbles. Doing that will help get the air bubbles out. You can also give it a little poke. You know, the air bubbles don't really affect the quality, but they create like a visual issue. So pastry chefs don't like those air bubbles in there. That looks good. Is our oven ready? It's ready to go. Okay, so
So if you're using a pan like this, it says 15 to 20 minutes. If you're using the thinner sheet pan, we're doing 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna set our timer for 15 minutes. We might need to add some time. If you're using the sheet pan, set your timer for 12 minutes.
What do you recommend the 9x9 pan?
Well, the 9x9 pan, I would think you would still need to split the, no, you wouldn't need to split a 9x9. I would do what we're doing. I would do 15 minutes. Follow along with us if you're doing a 9x9. So I'm gonna set a 15-minute timer and we'll just wait for that to go off. Are there any other cake related questions? This is highly technical. I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask the cake related questions to, but I'm here to answer them.
Right now, there aren't any.
Okay. Well, and if you've got questions that come up, just shoot them over to us. We'll go ahead and move on to Ragu, what we're all here for. The star of our Ragu show is the pulled pork. This is already smoked, pulled, chilled, and vacuum sealed. So this is a whole portion of our menu is called the buy in bulk barbecue, and this is the buy in bulk barbecue. So this is 1 pound of pulled pork from Feges BBQ, and this is going to be the meat base for the Ragu. And so we'll just cut the bag open. Would you like to cut the onion?
It's your show. You do it.
Okay, so we're going to bring you guys over here. He's nervous using his knife in front of me.
Aaron's got better knife skills than I do.
Hey, while I'm cutting it, will you pour me a glass of wine? Okay. So, using a sharp knife, you're going to cut your onion in half. You probably don't need that half. Save it and use it for another recipe. And quarter it. And then just to protect your fingers, see if you can see that.
Go ahead and put the cake in the oven. If you haven't put the cake in the oven, go ahead and put the cake in the oven. There was
Yes.
a question about that.
Yeah, go ahead and put the cake in the oven.
We're going to bake it while we're cooking
Yeah.
the Ragu.
All right. So we're going to thinly, they don't have to be micro thin. Just, you know, do your best. About that thick. You can do the whole onion if you want, but I just think the ratio, you don't necessarily need it. And then when you get to the edge, where you've got about that much left to protect your fingers, just put it on its flat side and go like that. All right, there's our onions. I'm gonna turn my burner on. Grab. Okay, so I'm gonna probably have it on high for most of this, but I might adjust it down. Wait till the pan gets really hot before you add the oil. If you add the oil at the beginning, it's just gonna take longer to heat up. So we'll get the pan going and get the pan super hot. While our pan is heating up, we'll just get the rest of our mise en place ready. So you should have a can opener. We're gonna open our can of crushed tomatoes. Don't drain it. You want all of the good juice in there. That's the base. Thank you. That's the base for our pasta. How much oil do you put in? I'll show you guys. I'm gonna just maybe 2 tablespoons probably. But we might not add it all at once. So like I'll start with about a tablespoon and then we'll saute the onions. And as the onions absorb the oil and cook, we'll see the need for more and we'll add it then.
Is there a reason why you like this brand of tomato?
Well, so my favorite tomatoes are San Marzano tomatoes, and you can find those at the grocery store. The crushed tomato is more important to me than the brand. Cinto is a really great brand if you're, and you can find it at, all the local stores. These are from HEB. So everybody has the same brand in their meal kit. The crushed tomato is just a really good consistency for the sauce. If you wanted to use whole tomatoes that were canned, or even just whole tomatoes that you have, you could use a food mill and you could food mill them in. And that would be really awesome if you wanted to go to that extra step. And pre-COVID, I think Patrick and I used to do a lot of those types of things when we were cooking. Now I feel like we're just kind of rushing home trying to get a quick meal together. So the last time I made this, I did use the canned because it was just so easy and convenient. So now I can feel my pan's getting super hot.
Usually about half the onion.
I used half. It was a pretty large onion, so I used half. You want to get about this much, and then you'll see I've got my other half of the onion over here. You can use all of it. If you really love onions, there is no reason why you couldn't just add more. So that is the amount of oil that I'm going to start with. After adding it, I would say that might actually be 2 tablespoons. Patrick was right. And you can see it's already hot. I can tell that it's hot by how quickly it's moving in there. That's a beautiful sound in the kitchen. And now we're going to use our noni spoon. Your Italian grandmother, even if you're not Italian, you should have a noni spoon. And I turn the heat down just a little bit. I have it medium high right now. You can already see it's browning, that beautiful caramelization. So as onions brown, they sweeten. So you don't want onions to cook too quickly, because in order for them to get that beautiful sweetness that they can get, it just requires just a slower caramelization, which is why we're going to stir it pretty frequently and not let it sit and get too much color. Yeah, we'll just do this step. I'm going to check the water. Okay, so our water is boiling, which is perfect. We are going to season the water. So like I said earlier, we didn't season the water before because we wanted the water to be boiling. And now I'm going to show you. So we're using kosher salt. It's a coarser grade of salt. It's the same salt we used in the in your cake, which is why it didn't sift through. I had to sift everything and then pour the salt in after because it's a coarser grade. I'm going to add a pretty aggressive amount of salt. So 1 big handful, 2 big handfuls. The pasta water should be salty like the sea. So it should, if you were to taste this water, which I don't really recommend because it's going to be super hot, but if you were to taste the water, it would be salty, like almost offensively salty. That's what you want.
You need to feel like you're over salting it.
Yeah, you want to feel like you're over salting it because the pasta is only going to absorb, a small amount of the salt from the water. So the water has to have too much salt in it. And so the pasta water is ready to go. But I want to get a little further along with our ragu before we start boiling the pasta. Oh, but this is a good time to shout out. So the fresh pasta that you have in your kit was made by a local restaurant in Montrose called Polly's. It's one of my favorite restaurants. I used to work with Paul and the team at Camerata. I think their pasta is some of my favorite. The rigatoni bolognese is my favorite pasta dish in Houston. So naturally, when I wanted fresh pasta, I called him. So he made 105 of these fresh pastas for us with really awesome instructions on the back so that I couldn't mess it up. But it's the ingredients: durum flour and water. That's it. Super simple. Keep it refrigerated. So if you're not making it tonight, just leave it in the refrigerator. If you're not going to make it for a week, then freeze it. And we're just going to boil it for 8 minutes. It says lightly, but scratch that. Heavily salted water. So we've got that ready to go on the side. Yay, Polly.
And so, quick note: if you do have your fire too high, and you notice your onions are starting to burn, you can add like a tablespoon of water, or maybe a little bit more oil to slow it down, to stop it from burning. Because you don't want to burn the onions; we're just sweating them.
That's right. We're just sweating the onions.
But a lot of us like to cook with the heat cranked up all the way. So.
Well, we get used to doing that in professional kitchens because the biggest fear is that you're going to lose your heat. That's not as much of a problem at home. Thank you for the wine. I'm just going to get it out of the way.
It's actually a good trick when you're caramelizing onions is constantly add a little bit of water, and it keeps onions from burning while you're caramelizing them.
Yeah, you could add garlic to this too. I didn't, just because I really kind of like the simplicity of the recipe, and the pork really shines, which is our pork, so naturally we want that to be the highlight. But you could add garlic, you could add basil, you could add other vegetables to this, you could add eggplant. I mean, really cooking is all about breaking rules, which is why, delinquents like us do this for a living. So rules are meant to be broken. There are no rules in cooking, so it's great. I'm gonna let it go just a little bit longer. This is the point though where we start thinking about adding the pork. The pork is cooked, so we're not adding it to cook it. We're adding it to just kind of break it up a little bit and to use some of the pork fat to continue cooking the onions, because there is, a decent amount of fat in the pork naturally. So that smoked fat is the best fat to cook with. I'm just gonna cut this open.
How many other products have you guys selling that could be an alternative to this?
Whoa.
Oh, the other day Aaron made this dish with our barbacoa.
Yeah.
You can use brisket. If you want to be healthier, you can throw some chicken or turkey in there. Really anything. It's kind of what you.
And what's the amount of bacon roughly what's the amount of that, this size rather?
So this is a 1 pound bag. We sell some stuff in 2 pound bags. I think now most of what we have is available in a 1 pound bag because it's a more appropriate meal amount. So this is a 1 pound bag of pulled pork, and we're going to use all of this in this dish. So because we don't like getting our hands dirty, we just use the bag to kind of break it up, and then we're going to continue stirring it. So the reason it kind of formed like this is just because we had it under vacuum.
The time to take that to the pound is just 4 people. Roughly.
Yeah, when we're giving recommendations for how much barbecue to order, we tell people a minimum of half a pound per person. But when you're adding it to a recipe, there's going to be other components. I would say even like a quarter of a pound would be sufficient.
Yeah. You're gonna fill up that pasta.
Yeah, and so don't season this. This smoked meat is heavily seasoned, so you do not need to season this on top of what is already in there. So this was seasoned with salt, pepper. What do you smoke the pork with?
Salt, pepper, granulated onion, granulated garlic, and then when we pull it, we add our pork rub, which is a little bit sweeter. It's got a little bit of heat to it, and then a little bit of our pulled pork sauce, which again, a little sweeter, a little vinegar.
And when people are buying from you, like you're doing a recipe a week or 2 ahead, I mean, how long can you keep it in the refrigerator? Is it okay to freeze it, and for how long?
So we sell it frozen because I think talking to most people, they just go home and throw it in the freezer anyways. And that way, so we vacuum seal it and immediately freeze it. So it lasts longer. You can hold it in the freezer for, like a year, vacuum sealed. That's the beauty of vacuum sealing it. It won't get freezer burned. In the fridge, I mean, 5 days, a week maybe. You know, you can always just give it the smell test if it's pushing that limit.
Where's the wine? No, not.
Pour it out of there.
I'm not pouring my glass of wine into the food. So I'm gonna have you guys, I'm gonna bring you over to the pan that we're in. You can see some of the, like the juices that are getting stuck to the bottom right here. That's beautiful. You want a little bit of that. And you don't want it to be burned. You just want it to be nice, beautiful brown. And
Culinary term for that, what is it?
I was just getting to that. The culinary term is deglazing, and that is why we have asked you all to have a little bit of wine prepared. The recommendation in our recipe is 2 to 3 cups. I'm gonna eyeball my 2 to 3 cups, but I want you to see what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be stirring all the flavor that's right there. Oh yeah. You know, you could use red wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar. I wouldn't use 2 to 3 cups of it. I would just do a little bit of a splash. You could also do stock. Stock is a really great way to deglaze.
You can do beer, you can do water.
Really, it's about adding a liquid. The more flavor is in the liquid, the more flavor you're adding. So water is an option, but water is a flavorless option. So it will work, but it's not going to add anything. It won't take anything away though. So if water is what you've got, then use it, because that's actually the name of the game for all of the cooking we do at our house now is, what do we got? I do not like going to the grocery store more than I have to. So now that I've deglazed, I'm going to go ahead and add what I think is my 2 to 3 cups.
Yeah, if you use vinegar, definitely don't put as much because it's going to be too hard.
I'm going to add just a little bit more. And that, perfect timing, guys. Timer for our cake. So what we're gonna let the wine cook. You want the wine to cook. You want to cook out the alcohol in it. Not that there's any problem with just consuming the alcohol by eating it, but by cooking it, you cook out the alcohol. So if you are not interested in the alcohol portion of this, this is what we're getting rid of right now. So we're gonna let this simmer a little bit, and then we'll add our tomato product. But that timer is for our cake. So we're gonna check the cake. Yeah, so I'm gonna put it on this mat while I'm testing it. Okay, well, I don't even need the cake tester. We're gonna give it a little bit more time. And that's the thing about ovens. Everybody's oven is different. I'm sure our oven at home is nowhere near as efficient as our oven at work. So that was 15 minutes. I'm gonna add 5 minutes to my timer. If you did it on a sheet pan, what you'll wanna do is take a knife or a fork, put it into the center. It's important that you do it in the center. Any kind of residual on your tester, then it needs to go a little bit longer. If yours is jiggling like mine was, you don't even need to do that because it definitely needs to go longer. So I'm gonna do more time. 5 minutes is what I'm adding.
Be sure to close the pan.
Yeah. It's definitely still liquid. On the edges, it's already starting to finish cooking.
The pork is
Someone
what
asked
they
me
want.
to close the pork to gauge what the wine looks like.
Okay, so all the liquid in there right now is just the wine. We haven't added any of the tomato yet. Somebody asked me when they picked up if they could use white wine. White wine certainly works too. I like red wine just because it kind of adds to the color and the richness. But white wine has great flavor. And if white wine's what you want to drink, then by all means, that's what you should use.
And I wouldn't worry about adding too much or too little wine. It doesn't affect the flavor that much, right? Like
No.
we eyeballed it, and there's measurements, but if someone's worried about how much to add, it's minimal.
Yes.
So someone said the word moment is the pasta boiling.
So the water is boiling. We don't have the pasta in there yet. We're actually just about to do that. So since we know the pasta takes 8 minutes, I'm gonna hold off on adding it to the water because I don't want the pasta water timer, the cake, and like all those things happening at the same time. So a lot of cooking success is about organizing your time. We've got the water ready though, so as soon as we kind of get the cake out and that's resting, we'll drop the pasta water. But what I am gonna do right now is add the rest of my ingredients to the ragu. So I'm gonna take the canned crushed tomatoes and add that in. So I never completely remove the lids so that I can just push them back in. So get all that good tomato juice out. And then just like that, so that it's not a danger in my trash can. Nobody's gonna get hurt. Okay, so we'll mix this in. And the reason I like using the wooden spoon is it's just really gentle on my pan, but it's also really effective. And when it comes to the tomato paste is used in this recipe as a thickening agent so that it binds to the wine, it binds to the tomato liquids, it binds to any juices that you know, come from the pork, and it just kind of brings everything together. And so we're gonna go ahead and add that in and let it cook. So the only way it thickens is if it has time to cook. So let me grab a spoon. Push that. I'm gonna go ahead and use all of it. This is 6 ounces. And whenever you add tomato paste to a recipe, you want to add it while the liquid is hot. If you add it cold, then it doesn't really dissolve in and do its job. Okay, so that's the 6 ounces of tomato paste. I'm gonna kind of work it in. Okay, so if you had your sheet pan cake, you should definitely have pulled it out, checked it. It's most likely done. Set it aside and have that cooling. How's our 9x9er? Is your cake done yet? I'm going off of your time. Okay. So this is how we want it. We want a nice kind of, the consistency of this is perfect. So now that I've got my pasta water boiling, I'm gonna take the lid from that pan just because for my kit, they're universal. And I'm gonna turn the heat down to medium low and just let that sit. And
9x9 is not.
okay, so yeah, we're just still waiting. Time to add the pasta. So our water is at a boil. I've got 13 seconds left on my timer. I'm just gonna go ahead and cancel the timer. We'll check the cake. Don't forget about the cake. I can only handle one thing going on at a time. So I'm gonna pour the pasta in. I wanna make sure that it's not getting stuck together. And also wash for any splash, right? Because this is hot water, so you don't want it to splash up and burn yourself. There we go. Once we add the pasta to the water, the next important step is you want to agitate the water. So just give this all a stir. You want to agitate the water. That keeps the pasta from sticking. And then leave it alone. It'll come back up to boil. So that's 8 minutes. I'm going to set another timer. And we're going to check our cake. All right, this is looking more like it. So there's no jiggle, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's cooked yet. I'm gonna go right into the middle of the cake, bring it up. There is no residual. Our cake is done. Fancy that. So we're gonna let that cool. Turn our oven off, because if your house is like ours, your house is probably 1,000 degrees. We only have the oven on for as long as we need it.
So it's been 20 minutes for this cake. Again, ovens are different. So if yours isn't done, Just give it another minute or two. Set a timer if you need to. At this point, I'd go in 1 or 2 minute increments until it's done, because it's got to be close.
Yeah, it should be close. Don't try to take it out of the pan while it's still really hot. We're gonna let it cool, but because we've got this parchment paper in here, it's gonna be super easy for us to get this out. And gosh, that smells really good. Can you guys smell that? I like that. So let's check our ragu. So watch your heat. You really don't want it to scorch. So what I'll do is I have it on medium low, but our burners are super efficient. Our oven is not very efficient, but our burners are really efficient. So I'm gonna turn it down a little bit just to make sure that I don't get scorch on that. All right.
Okay.
6 minutes left.
FYI, I looked at the Chopped episode, and it's season 28, episode 10.
Okay,
Which
guys.
one? Is that the one she won? Or the
That
one
was
she didn't
Deadliest.
win?
That's Deadliest Basket. Season 28, episode 10 is the Chopped episode. Thank you.
Robin.
Thank you, Robin, for looking into that. That's the only one you should watch. It's very glorious. I win. And that's not a spoiler because we said that at the beginning. That's pretty cool. I haven't watched it in a while. That was 4 years ago.
Story.
Oh, yeah, the day I was giving birth actually, and my Chopped episode was on TV. We were watching it while I was giving birth. It was a very powerful moment for me. I felt like nothing could stop me. And then I had a child, and if you have children, you know, they're very, humbling all the time. So give this a little bit of a stir. You can see them coming. We've got just a few minutes. It's gonna take 5 more minutes on the pasta. Our sauce is ready. We're just gonna keep it warm. So the organizer in me wants to just go and clean everything up real fast, because that's how we do it. So I'm gonna throw some stuff away, get the stuff out of the way. This is what my assistant was supposed to be doing. He's fired.
I've done a decent job. What I'm doing is getting you a second towel for when you dump that pasta.
See, there you go.
Hey, besides Polly's and obviously you guys, are there other restaurants you feel like are doing really fun artisan products that they're new to this sort of COVID environment?
A lot.
Man.
Everybody's getting really creative. So that's a really, really good thing to talk about. Some examples off the top of my head. Like we're doing farmers markets, and there's more restaurants each week that are joining us at the farmers market. And Underbelly Hospitality, which is Georgia James, UB Preserve, 1/5, Hay Merchant. They have an assortment of items from all of those restaurants. They also have cocktails that you can buy. You have to buy them ahead of time, but you can pick them up at the farmers market.
And they are also doing cooking classes like this.
They're also doing Zoom
So
classes.
if you guys are enjoying this interactive
Mhm.
cooking, check them out.
Yeah.
Who else is doing classes like this?
I don't know about classes, but there's a lot of people that are just getting really creative. A lot of bars are doing to-go cocktails, or they have pop-ups, and that's their food option. I'm trying to think.
Just eat local.
Yes.
Don't go to Whataburger. Go to your neighborhood local restaurant, because Whataburger, Chick-fil-A is going to survive this. It's the smaller guys, the family-owned ones that are really struggling. So please get it to go, eat on the patio.
Yeah, or eat it at home. That's more convenient than that. Okay, just waiting on my pasta babies. They're close, they're soft. So 3 more minutes. Throw some questions at us. Or start eating your salad. And you can see, I don't know if you guys remember what it looked like before, but it's really broken down. And normally with a salad, that's not a good thing, but with kale salad, that is exactly what you want.
Yeah, it's going to be less fibrous.
Awesome. Are you guys excited about the Texans tonight? Because we are. What time is it? Oh, it's 7. We've got 20 minutes. Guys, this is going to be perfect. we will plate our cake, we'll plate our pasta, and then you can literally sit down on your couch with your glass of wine and start watching the Texans at 7:20, right? 7:20? Okay. I don't watch that much football. These days, I'm just excited about any normalcy. Okay.
My pasta's floating. I think it's al dente. When it's same time as your thoughts. The pasta's floating.
Our water is not at an aggressive boil, so your water might be a little bit warmer and your pasta might be ready. Check it. There's also a preference, subjectiveness involved here. So if your pasta is exactly how you want it, then by all means strain it and start mixing it into the ragu, or just strain it and you can wait till the glass catches up. But
Maybe
yeah.
take a piece out and taste it to see if it's al dente.
Yeah, I always do that, especially with bigger pastas like the rigatoni, because once you empty the water, it's hard to then go back and say, okay, it needs a few more minutes. So I always check it. If I'm cooking for our son, I let it go over because he has like 6 teeth. So we do overcooked pasta. If I'm cooking just for us, we definitely lean on the al dente side. So again, preference is a big part of this. As long as you can chew through it, you're on the right track.
We'll show you what to do with the peanut butter and grape and the cake here in a minute.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let it cool. Another lesson, let your pasta cool before you taste it. You can see the steam coming from it. It feels like it might be ready. Another minute. But my timer is about to go off, which means if you set your timer when I did, check yours, because that's 8 minutes. And yours is probably ready to go. I mean, this is al dente. I could totally serve this. This is good.
There's gonna be a slight variation given different ovens, different stoves, how quickly your water recovers. So it's 8 minutes roughly. If you got a much nicer stove than we do, it might be 7 minutes. You're cooking on a electric stove top, it might take a little bit long. 8's the ballpark.
Okay. So I think we chatted for about a minute. And I've got a strainer in my sink. Try not to have your face right over this unless you want a facial.
Nice pasta steam bath.
Yeah. And dump it in. Now, a lot of people say you should save some of that pasta water, which you can, but our sauce is the right consistency, so we don't really need the pasta water. But what the pasta water does is it has all the starch from the pasta. So the pasta water is also a thickening agent, which is why in a lot of recipes, really classic traditional Italian recipes, the pasta water is the liquid in the pasta sauce. So you might just add a little butter to it and it'll just all thicken and be beautiful. But that's looking good. Okay, so here's what I've learned. The ragu sauce, there's a lot of it, and there's probably a little bit that you could take out and have leftovers. I'm gonna add all of our pasta to that liquid, to your ragu. There you go. And then just give it a nice little stir. Just like that. And it's super hot, so we're not gonna cook it, we're not gonna eat it right away. But while we're letting it just kind of, all those flavors come together, we're gonna plate our dessert.
So the heat is off on that, right?
I have it on low. I'm gonna turn it off though. So the thing about rigatoni is you see all the little indentations, those collect sauce. So pasta shapes have a purpose. We chose this shape because we wanted it, we knew we were gonna be using like a meatier sauce, and the rigatoni will help catch all the flavor there. So we're just gonna mix it and then let it sit for a minute and then we'll plate it up. And luckily we've got some people here that I'm sure are pretty hungry.
Mhm.
And here we go. So let that sit for a minute. And now we're gonna plate.
So someone said their cake still isn't done.
Just let it keep going then. Might be just a thicker pan. If you're just wanting to keep up with the class, you could pull it out and just use the edges for plating. But it'll probably be ready if you just give it another couple of minutes. And so we're gonna do some fun plating stuff. This isn't Patrick's favorite part, but I am gonna have him cut my pastry bags. So you've got the pastry bags. You're just gonna cut the edges off of these pastry bags. And how much do you cut off? We'll show you. It's not super critical. Okay, so how much did you cut off of that?
About an inch, a little over an inch.
Okay, cut less of your jelly compote.
Like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 3/4 of an inch, half an inch.
Yeah. So you can't really go wrong, but what you're gonna, this just kind of gives you the ability to do little, if you want to do something like that. What I like to do with the jelly, because of the texture of it, is put a little bit over here. And then using a pastry brush, if you have one, is just kind of like brush it on the plate. And you're not going to use very much of the grape jelly. The jelly is just a really nice accent. You can taste it. It's going to be really noticeable.
So what we do at the restaurant is we brush the jelly on top of the cake, so it kind of soaks into the cake and also kind of seals it so that cake doesn't dry out.
Yeah. Okay, so this is how I like to do it. You can do a sheet cake like Patrick just said, or you can just kind of go in and pull some of the cake out and shred it up and just kind of do like a little, like you're piecemealing it. So just take that nice gooey cake and just kind of crumble it.
A lot of fancy restaurants plate cake just like this.
Deconstructed. Oh my gosh, and it smells amazing. So this is exactly how I was going to do it on Chopped because I didn't have time to do sheet cake. And then I'll take, and you can get creative. You don't have to do exactly like this. You can keep them in pieces. If you let it cool more, you could cut it into little squares. Then I'm going to take my peanut butter buttercream that hopefully you pulled out and it's at room temperature, and you can do little dots. You can do little swivels. Kind of, this is super fancy for at home, but we thought we'd have fun with it.
And you can spread it on the cake if you want.
Yep.
Kind of leave it up to you.
So if you wanted to do the layered cake, I would do something like that and then spread it using, so pulling out a fancy tool. Just do something like that and then spread it. Ours is still pretty warm. We just pulled it out. So it's kind of, I'd let it cool more if I was going to do it like that. That's it. All right. We've got our one dessert. We've got our salad. And I'm going to plate up.
Would you recommend using that same spoon or a different spoon to plate that?
Well,
Maybe a less messy one?
I've got my less messy one. Yeah. Your assistant who might be doing the dishes later. Okay, gosh, this smells really good. Now, we didn't include any Parmesan. If you happen to have stuff like that in your refrigerator, go for it. If you happen to be growing basil in your backyard, go for it. Not requirements, but you know, every time we serve pasta, we usually put some cheese over it, but we just don't do our cheese.
Are there butter and cream in the peanut butter cream?
There is, yes. There's not cream, but there's butter and there is egg, which is why we originally refrigerated it. We said we wanted it at room temperature for the class. All right. Well,
Any questions?
Any questions? We're all done. This smells really good. I can smell the wine, which is why wine is a good ingredient. Hit us.
So you guys know, Susan Margaret says, my dream come true, smell of vision. She smells as good as your video looks. Patricia's husband says Mayor Flavortown.
Yes, Flavortown. Awesome.
The dressing, and then we have a lot of other thank yous. It's so delicious. And
Oh, thank you guys for doing this with us. It was
Guys.
pretty.
Yeah.
This is our first cooking class, so.
No, I've done cooking classes. This is my first virtual Zoom cooking class. It's a whole new world. No, this smells really good. This wine is hitting in all the right spots. And, we really hope you guys enjoyed cooking with us this evening. Let us know if there's any feedback you have. You can send it to us. You can email us at info@Feges BBQ, or you're welcome to email Kateri so that we can make things better. We can do recipes if you've got suggestions for ways we can use our barbecue. You know, we'd love to get your ideas and hopefully incorporate that into some future classes. We really had a lot of fun. This is giving us a lot of purpose in life right now.
Right.
So
Take pictures, tag us in it.
yes.
Contest.
Yeah, so tag Parkway, which is PKY Houston, and tag Feges BBQ, which is at FEGES BBQ. And again, thank you guys. Hope you enjoy your dinner.
Thank you.
All right.
Holy. Thank y'all so much. This has been wonderful. Can't wait to eat.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
you're welcome.
Excited to try it. Hi.
Oh yeah, shout out to Thomas.
The youngest cake baker. There's your youngest cake baker. She did the whole cake herself.
Oh, that's great.
Wait,
No, this is Nicole.
where's that? I'm not sure why you're getting these.
Camera's off?
No, yours is.
Oh.
This one's on.
If it's really not a hassle. then-
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it looks delicious.
Amazing.
I was just like watching you make it, and like,
Hey, Aaron, where's the baby?
Sorry.
Oh, he's parents. He would have been interrupting a lot.
He's fun to cook with, but a lot of things burn while we're cooking with Wyatt.
Hey, Christy, now I can see you. I couldn't see you before.
That's because they have so many folks on here. You have to scroll
I
through hundreds
know.
of people.
I know. So what do you think? It's so good, right?
It is. I love the salt in the water before you cook the noodles. That's my big takeaway.
I always do that.
Yeah, I don't.
It makes it taste so much better. Yeah.
I'm definitely not the cooker in this household, obviously.
Well, that's kind of against my job, right? Per Meredith.
Good job, Patrick and Aaron.
Dinner.
Thank
That
you.
Thomas?
Yeah.
Hey.
Bye.
Patrick. Aaron and Patrick, y'all rocked it.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Y'all did awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, baby, what?
Thank you guys. Enjoy the game. My
Hey,
bad.
Sam and Pat, come here. You want to come say hi to Chris